Call to order the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission for April the 22nd, 2024. We'll ask that you please stand at this time for our prayer and pledge of allegiance. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for this beautiful day you've given us with the sunshine and this spring day. Father, we're so thankful for being a part of Rutherford County. And as we, as a planning commission, get together to deal with the things that affect our county, we ask that you give us the ability and the wisdom to look at the betterment for the citizens of this county. Father, may we always remember that the many things that we have here and the blessings that we do have come from you. Father, we ask that you watch over us, that you protect us, and that you guide us. We offer this prayer in your Son's holy name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Madam Secretary, please call the roll and determination of quorum.
Tim Averwater. Here. Jeff Phillips. Right. Mike Cush. Lee Bogle. Here. Charlotte P. Here. Trey Gooch. David Jones. Here. Chip Pinion. Marvin Whitworth. Jim Thompson. Here. Pettis Reed.
Here.
We have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. Next item is the approval of the minutes. I don't believe have any minutes that are available at this time. We'll move to item 5, which is public comment period. Mr. DeMasi, do we have any?
No, sir. Nobody signed up.
No one has signed up, so we'll move into items withdrawn or deferred.
None have been withdrawn nor deferred.
Okay, we'll just move right into our new business. Item A, waiver request. Item 1. Is Bryan Hacker, 244001, is requesting a waiver to minimum 5-acre lot size for lots along private easements for property along Midland Road, Spence Farm, Lot 9, Tax Map 181, Parcel 15.28. Mr. DeMasi.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and good morning, everybody. As you stated, the applicant does have property along Midland Road. It's part of the Spence Farm that was sold off that sold off in several large tracts. The current configuration of the property was created back in July of last year. He's currently building a home on the property on the adjacent tract, which is parcel 15.11, but would like to split the subject property in such a way that both parcels would be less than 5 acres. You'll see that there is a concept plan with your agenda packets. These tracts would access a private easement, necessitating the waiver for the lots of less than 5 acres off the easement. The applicant has included a description of activities that explain the request. Again, I have put that in your agenda packets. I believe the applicant is present. Yes, the applicant is present. It's sitting on the front row there. I just didn't see him. So he's here for any questions, and staff will be available for questions as well.
Commissioners, any questions for staff?
I have a question. How many, he wants 2-acre lot and a 3-acre lot. How, the surrounding lots, are there any other 2-acre and 3-acre lots, or are they all 5?
Since this has sold, when this was auctioned off, it sold off in several large tracts. We've seen several subdivisions. Most of them haven't required waiver requests. Most of them have been, taking a 5 or 10-acre tract and splitting it into 2 or 3 different tracts. That's a long way of saying there are others out there that are going to be comparable to this size, although most of those aren't on a private easement. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I will say that should this be approved, he'll have to go through the platting process, and the plat will have to come back through the Planning Commission because of the fact that it's the waiver request. So.
Mr. Vogel.
Thank you. Doug, is this very similar to the one we dealt with on Dilton-Mankin Road? I mean, I just want to make sure we're consistent in what we're doing, but that one wasn't necessarily a private easement.
Correct. I was about to say, it's size-wise, it's probably not a whole lot different. Okay. But from a standpoint of all those lots were accessing public roads.
But similar characteristics.
Correct. Size-wise, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for the, for staff? If not, any questions for the applicant, or would you like for the applicant to come forward? We'll ask that the applicant come forward at this time. Yes, sir. Just come right here. Just give them your name.
Bryan Hacker.
Tell them your intention as far as the property. That might help them out.
Currently where I reside, or where this address? I live at 1514 Ansley K Drive, Christiana, Tennessee.
Are these family members, or are you just trying to sell the
So we
lots?
purchased, we own 17 acres. We're currently building our residence on the 12-acre parcel that's neighboring this one. The 5-acre parcel is the subject property. By rule, my soil site is located where this site is, and for my better and best use of the property, I would like to see. I have 5 children, and we would love the idea of friends or family potentially living next door to us. And by rule, I can have 3 lots off of the easement with 5 acres or greater. And if I was to make that happen, I would be pushing the 5 acres into my daughter's horse pasture and removing the horse pasture from her. And that's the main reason we bought acreage. We live in a subdivision now, was for her to have her own horse, because horse has been part of her life for the last 7 years. And that way we don't have to lease horses and that kind of thing.
Let me ask you this, just from, I know one of the most beautiful strips of ground out our way, and I live out toward Rockville area. I'm actually a Murfreesboro address, but Rockville at one time. From a farm, when we're splitting these up and dividing them up and all that, we got one Versailles going to be selling this weekend. When I see these types of lots, in my mind, when I go out there to purchase a lot and I see there's a nice 17-acre site or 14-acre site or 40-acre site, in my mind, I know I'm buying me a big tract of land to be away from a subdivision. I'm just wondering what the impact's going to be long term and how these houses are going to stack in. Or maybe even when you went to the sale to buy the land, did you have any idea that your next door neighbor might have 3 or 4 houses next to you there? Would that have impacted you from buying that land?
Well, I didn't know that, actually. The lot on the right was 24 acres, and they ended up dividing them into multiple 5-acre parcels. And we were building on the back half, and we anticipated to be back there by ourselves, and now someone's building about 100 feet from us, which it is what it is, and I understand that. But are you asking how in the future they get, like, where the houses would be on that 5 acres?
Yeah, I'm just saying out there in the countryside, we split these farms up with the intentions, and we advertise them that they're going to be large acreage lots for your homes. Mm-hmm. I almost think of them as estate lots, and then all of a sudden we got houses that are placed right behind someone. They're sideways. You think you're in the front of a house, but the people are stacking houses at all kinds of angles, and it looks just like an unplanned growth.
What if we were to ever build on these 2 or 3 acre parcels, off of the easement coming in where the yellow line starts, the houses would be pushed in 150, 200 feet in, and there would be only 2 of them, and they're tucked off the road. That would be the anticipated plan, to answer your question.
Okay.
But nothing beyond that.
What I'm hearing you, the day of the sale, you didn't think about splitting this up. Now that you bought it, we're thinking about splitting it up.
Well, not necessarily. We bought it with the intention of knowing we wanted acreage for my daughter and horses. And when we purchased the property, it had a very large soil site. And after I purchased the property, I came in and found out that I could by rule take multiple parcels off of that one easement. And with such a large soil site, and I've been looking for land for a couple of years, with that 5-acre tract has 44,000 square feet of soil site. It just made a lot of sense knowing that I have, growing children, and it makes sense to make the most out of that property.
Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? If not, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioners? Mr. Phillips?
Thank you. Doug, this is similar to a number of other things that we've done in the past. I'm not sure that it's things that we want to do going forward with our comprehensive plan, but does it meet all the requirements, and does staff have a recommendation?
I don't think we have a recommendation one way or the other. Have we looked at similar situations in the past? Yes. Everyone's always judged on its own merits. Of course, a waiver is not something they're entitled to. So, you know, I guess really it's up to the commission as to whether or not they feel it's justified in this situation.
Can you show me where, I think I can see it on this plan, but can you show me where that actually the access to that property would be?
Yeah, Mike's showing you that right there on that flag portion.
And that private easement was already configured in the, when all this property was bought?
Well, no, he bought it as one big tract, so he would have to put the easement. Now, he created a, when you look at the tax maps, there is a, you know, you've got the 12 acres and then the 5-acre tract that he created off of that. I mean, you can do that with a 50-foot easement without having to come to us for anything. But the issue he's having to come before us is because he wants to split that further and still access that same easement.
Yeah, this is the tract survey, I guess, where it was originally carved up, and it was part of this 17-acre tract 9.
Right, so there was not, at the time, there was no need for an easement because that flag lot went all the way back to the tract itself.
So the other homes, the homes below that, where are their driveway connections? Do you know?
When you say below, you talking tract 4?
You like track 8 or 7, where would
Those would just have direct access to Midland Road. Yeah, they have their own road frontage. They would just have their own driveway access.
Yeah, some of these were subdivided up into smaller lots. So tract, let me get back to it. This tract 8 was subdivided into these two 2.67, 2.68 acre tracts, and they each have access to Midland Road. And then likewise, other 5-acre tracts were subdivided down into 2 smaller tracts, or 2 parcels.
I may not have heard Mr. Hacker correctly, but I believe he said he's building his house.
That's
on
correct.
One of these lots. Can you show me which one that is?
You see where that dot is right there, Mike, circling right about in that area. Now, the aerial that we're using, of course, is about a year or so old, so you wouldn't see it there. But we try to put the address points about where the house is going to be based on the information we get on the building permit. So right about in that area, toward the back.
So this private easement would affect him as well and his house?
Well, it's going to be still his property because the flag portion of that flagpole, if you will, of the flag lot is actually part of the parent tract. So it's his property. So technically he doesn't need an easement to access his own property. It's those other 2 that don't have road frontage because the larger tract will still have the road frontage because of that flagpole.
If we're living in the county, this is the stuff right here that drives people nuts, if you want to know the truth about it. He's got a legal driveway for his lot. He bought it the day of the sale for his lot. We're going to give someone a waiver in order to be able to have 2 more building lots, whether they're his daughters or if he sells this property when he gets it. And these are issues that we're causing when you put 2 more folks that move in here from California, New York, or Texas. They're using an easement. Right now, everything's good. He's got exactly what he paid for the day he bought the lot. So, for me, when you come in here and ask for a waiver to build 2 more houses, it could be 10 houses. he don't have enough room to get a road in there to meet a subdivision standard, so they're asking us for a waiver. If you're out in the country, folks are sick and tired of these kind of things going on. You start putting a lot of houses back here, then you get neighbors aggravated. Not today. If his daughters build, I'm sure they'll get along good, but these are things that's causing issues in this county.
Doug, just to clear up, so the waiver is because it's less than 5 acres.
That's
so is he
correct.
wanting to create 2 lots out of that 17, or 3 lots total, I guess, resulting in 3 lots, a 3 acre, a 2 acre, and then the remaining 12? Is that what he's?
That's what he's asking for.
That's what he's asking
correct.
for.
Yes.
I agree with Jim. I just, it was bought this way, and I'm looking at these parcels adjacent to it and start splitting those off and then we're not, the planning goes out the window. Everything becomes off easements and things that we're trying to avoid. And so for my part, I'll make a motion to deny.
A motion to deny. Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a second. Further discussion? If not, Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Jim Averwater? No. Jeff Phillips?
Yes.
Lee Bogle? Yes. Charlotte P.? Yes. David Jones? Yes. Jim Thompson?
Yes.
Pettis Reed?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Has been denied. Moving to item 2. Sam Anderson, 244002, is requiring an off-site septic soils easement waiver for property located at 5014 Halls Hill Pike, tax map 83, parcel 45.00. Mr. DeMasi.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The applicant is asking to divide an existing 5-acre tract into 2 separate lots. Now, this is a little different from the last one. These both will have road frontage along Halls Hill Pike when you look at the concept plan. The issue they're having on this one's a little different than the one we just considered. This one is dealing with the soil site. The soil site, if you look at the concept plan, is actually in the center of the property. So in order to create 2 lots out of this, they would have to split the soil site. So they're asking for a soil site easement for the lots. Basically, you're asking for, there's 2 different waivers you're looking at here. One, there's a requirement that you're not supposed to have off-site soils, an easement onto another tract. If you have, like, one can't have an easement for 2 without a waiver, but the other is 2 isn't supposed to have a soil site for lot 1, so it's kind of one and the same, really, but 2 separate provisions in the subdivision regulations. So again, it's a little different than the one we just considered. As you can tell, this is just a conceptual drawing that the surveyor sent, just to kind of give us an idea of what they were looking at. But with that, is the applicant present on this one? I don't see the applicant present here. No one's raising their hand anyway. So anyway, with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, questions for staff? Commissioner P.
Thank you. Doug, does this happen frequently? And it looks like there are other common size lots in the area?
Yes, there are, I would say. I mean, just really, let's look across the street, really, from the existing property. Now, these, I believe, is zoned RL, so they have to be at least a minimum of 1 acre, but from what he was showing, these were going to be about 2.5 acres in size, roughly. So, again, soil site easement's a little different than what we were just considering.
But how common is it to share the soil site?
I would say it's not so common that we see it every month, but it's not unusual to the point where we don't see a few a year where you see these kind of situations.
You'll see another one in a minute. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, have you run into any problems with sharing soil sites like this?
I personally haven't. Now, I know that there have been some concerns from the Planning Commission that they've voiced in the past regarding do both parties recognize and understand, yes, there is a soil site in favor of a different lot. That way they're not putting buildings there. That way they're not disturbing it or something like that. Now, we can't be out there policing that. All we can do is tell them to show it on the plat, make sure it's reflected in your deeds. That's very much all we can do. I know that's been a concern in the past for the Planning Commission.
Any other questions for staff?
Doug or Mike, can we, because that looks like it's in a pretty sharp curve there, do they need to share a driveway or do something with that configuration there to, I know that driveway in parcel 1 as it's proposed looks like it's in the best location. It looks to be.
Yeah, well, when we, of course, if this is approved and they decide to move forward with it, they would have to do a subdivision plat. I think at that time we could look at it. We'll have our highway department folks look at it as well as Mike and his staff to see if there needs to be any kind of notes added to the plat as far as shared driveways. Actually, there's a plat on today's agenda where that was an issue, and we'll kind of show you how it was addressed at that time. So, for now, it's a good comment and definitely something to keep in mind. But I think we would consider that more at the plat stage.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? You have questions for the applicant? Is the applicant here?
Well, he wasn't a moment ago. Someone just walked in. Are you Mr. Anderson? Yes. Okay.
Mr. Anderson, why don't you come forward at this time? Just come right up here and give them your name and address, and come right here behind the podium. Just talk to these individuals. Give them your name and address.
My name's Sam Anderson. I live at 2530 Rob Taylor Road, Lascassas, Tennessee.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Anderson, on lot 1, are the mobile home and the house there now?
No, sir.
Mobile home's gone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for the applicant?
One quick follow-up. These two lots will be owned by two different people or companies or something, right?
Yes,
Two
sir.
different. How will you work out who's responsible for fixing those things in the future? If you got soil sites that's not on your property and the other property says, I don't really care, I'm not letting the guy do it anymore because it needs some maintenance, and one guy says, I'm not going to fix it, and the other guy says, you have to fix it, how are you going to work all that out?
Well, it'll be restrictions, put in the restrictions that they would take care of that easement on their property.
How are you going to enforce that?
I guess I would talk to the homeowners and just try to work it out and hope they're understanding up front.
I'm talking about repairs years in the future, okay? You could possibly set up a tremendous argument between neighbors, two next-door neighbors, property owners, because of one using soil sites on another piece of property. And one says, I don't care, I'm using it, I've got the right to use it, but I'm not going to pay to fix it. How are you going to work all that out?
Well, the main soil site would be on the property with a house. That would be the duplicate system that's over on the neighbor. So all they would be doing is just cutting grass, but I think the worst, but they wouldn't be able to build anything on it. So if they were ever to the worst thing I could see is like, I don't know, you get ruts in the yard, and but it's going to be their property, so I wouldn't think they would want to damage it. You know, it'll be for that duplicate. If the main system fails, that would be the only time that they would be having to get over on the neighbor that might make a neighbor mad. But other than that, he would just be cutting that property and, you know, cutting the grass on it. And I wouldn't think there'd be a problem, but you never know.
Any other questions?
I just kind of want to bring some clarity here. So you have a primary system space for each home on each lot. They have their own primary system that an easement would not be involved. And the area that you were talking about for an easement is for a backup system in the event that one of those systems failed and could not be repaired, and then they would go on to their neighbor's property and be able to put in whatever remediation they needed to get their system back up and running. But the property owner would be responsible for maintaining that lot as if it was a part of his yard or his land. And then I'm assuming that you would have recorded in the deed of the property that there is an easement for the neighbors on that, and your neighbor does have rights to use that property for the purposes of a backup system at any point in the future, 200 years from now, 100 years, 500 years, whatever. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions or clarifications? If not, I think that's fine. Mr. Anderson, you may be seated.
All right, thank you.
Hey,
I'd like to thank Mr. Averwater for making that clarification for me. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, commissioners, it's up to you now.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion to approve with all of our staff comments.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. Commissioner Averwater. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? One no. It has been approved. All right, moving to item B, submitted for final plat approval. Beginning with item 1, Pamela Moore, 23-2058, one lot on 1001 acres, zoned RL, located along Old Woodbury Pike. Pamela and Samuel Moore are the applicants. Includes request for a fire hydrant waiver and a waiver allowing off-site septic soils. Mr. DeMasi.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The applicants are proposing to divide a 1-acre tract from the existing 7-acre tract there on Old Woodbury Pike. The new lot will have its own septic soil area, but there is an existing soil area on the proposed lot for the existing house on the proposed tract, or the parent tract, excuse me. The applicants are requesting a waiver for that off-site soil provision in our county's subdivision regulations. Consolidated Utility District has also determined that a fire hydrant cannot be supported in this area. Therefore, they are asking for a fire hydrant waiver. At the same time, they're looking for approval of this plat. With that, most of our comments on this have been addressed. I will say this area, and I'll let Mike discuss this a little bit more if I totally mess this up, but this is an area where flooding is a concern. The flood study, though, does stop prior to it getting to this part of the property, so FEMA does allow extending the flood insurance study profile up to 500 feet for the unstudied area, so they would need to do that and add the base flood elevation, and also add a minimum pad and minimum floor elevation, and add the appropriate notes to the plat. You can kind of see right there what I was talking about, how it just kind of stops right there. So, you know, we need to make sure that we're not creating any kind of an issue by creating any kind of a new subdivision lot on that property. So with that, Mike, if you want to add to that.
No, you covered it well. The subject property is here, and they're wanting to carve off that little parcel here, but unfortunately their septic system extends over the line. I'll show you right here, the existing soil site for the house here. So what we'll need is them to evaluate the area and set a minimum pad, minimum floor, because it's so close to this unmapped, unstudied section of the flood plat maps.
Commissioners, questions for staff? Mr. Bogle.
Just looking at it, dimensions, looks like the soil site is identified for the lot, if approved, is just to the northwest of the soil site that would require off-site soils allowance. Does that leave it, I guess my question is, does that leave any sort of a decent building envelope?
It's going to be tight because
with the East Fork,
they can't touch this area because it's the soil site for the existing house. So you've got this little area, sorry it's flashing, but this little area up front around here, and it's not a huge soil site, and it's some marginal soil. I'm not a soil scientist, but typically for a 3-bedroom and 75 MPI soils, you need about 12,000 square feet, and this is only 4,367 square feet. So I would think they could probably only get a bedroom out of this. A 1-bedroom. But again, I'm not a soil scientist. So.
Say that again, Mike. You think they could only get a 1-bedroom?
For the state, TDEC permits septic systems. And typically for marginal soil, the slower infiltration rate soils like this Bradyville soil type at 75 minutes per inch, it takes 75 minutes for soil to, the liquid to infiltrate into the soil. Typically you need 12,000 square feet for a 3-bedroom septic system. And they have on here only 4,367. So I'm guessing that they would only be allowed a 1-bedroom house on this parcel.
And if you look at the TDEC certification, it actually does say that under Note 1.
Yeah. Lot 1 is only for a 1-bedroom conventional subsurface.
So is the applicant aware of this information?
I haven't spoken personally to the applicant about that. I mean, they're the ones that would have had the soil site commissioned and everything. Is the applicant present on this? I don't see anybody raising their hand or anything. So, I mean, they're the one that commissioned the plat to be done. I mean, I guess I can't speculate as to whether or not they know it, but.
Well, I was just looking at the soil site for that property, then the off-site soils easement, and then also the stream buffer. It just didn't really leave a whole lot of, it just didn't seem like it. I was trying to understand, I think.
It will be a challenging site.
Let me jump in here just a minute. I bought a piece of property at 8300 Old Jackson Ridge Road, and this is all over the county similar to this. What happens is, back in the day, all this property was owned by the Ferris family. The Ferris son gets a house, needs a septic system, he finds soil, and they subdivide his house off with the soils on the property that I own at 8300. Folks that live in the house today is kin to my wife, so when their system failed, they were fine to come over on our property if they'd like to do so. but they went ahead and was able to find another site on this property, so they're now off of my site. What we just did earlier was similar to this. On this one, we've granted a guy a soil site for future failure, but we haven't identified whether or not it will fit the future application. When we have an easement and we're granting future easements, we really need to know where the site is at. It should be surveyed, it should be platted. A one-bedroom, I'm gonna make a motion to deny this. I don't know if anybody's gonna live in a one-bedroom, and if they do, the next person that buys it's probably gonna come in with an addition. But when we're approving these plats for future, we should know exactly what we're approving it for that future, and that site's already been identified and staked off for future use. So I'm gonna make a motion we deny this request.
Have a motion to deny. Do we have a second? Have a second. Further discussion?
And there is the fire hydrant waiver too, I think, is part of it. Yeah.
No discussion. Please call the roll.
Jim Averwater. Jeff Phillips.
Yes.
Lee Bogle. Charlotte P. David Jones. Jim Thompson. Pattis Reed.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Has been denied. Moving to item 2, Fox Camp Retreat, Section 1, 24-20-23, 29 lots on 100.05 acres, zone plan unit development, PUD, located along Bradeville Pike. Swanson Development, LP, is the applicant. Mr. Damasi.
Yes, sir, thank you. The preliminary plan for this development was approved by the commission back in October of 2021. This final plat does match that approved plan. Lot 74 that you see on the plat is actually for the townhome element. That site plan was approved back in October of last year by the Planning Commission. Most of our comments on this have been addressed. We need to make sure the applicant is providing all the adequate fire protection that they need in the form of fire hydrants. Of course, we'll verify that with our fire marshal, as well as making sure those locations are shown on the plat. And I will point out, for a planned development, I know that we've got concerns, and we've talked many times about the smaller lots. While these lots are less than 15,000 square feet, the minimum in this development for the single-family portion was 10,000 square feet. So these are larger lots, as you can see on the plat. So I just wanted to at least make that make you all aware of that. So with that, again, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions? Don't believe we have any questions. Anything from the applicant? Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve this final plat with staff comments.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? It has been approved. Moving into item 3, Thompson Downs, Section 3, 24-20-24, 38 lots on 41.73 acres, zone residential low density RL, located off Richland-Richardson Road. W.R. Thompson Homes, LLC, is the applicant. Mr. Damasi.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The preliminary plan for this development was approved by the commission back in July of 2020. Again, this final plat is consistent with that approved plan. Most of our concerns have been addressed. There are a couple of items outstanding. One of them, they just need to add the culvert locations. And also, with most of these plats, when we first see them, a lot of times they don't come signed and stamped by the surveyor because they're still in review. Obviously, before they're recorded, they will have to do that. That's really never been an issue, but that is one of the comments that we have left outstanding on this. You'll see these are 15,000 square foot lots. Although this was or is zoned residential low density RL, which does require the acre lot, this development was approved prior to us removing that provision in the zoning ordinance that allowed the higher density. So this was already part of the this plan was already approved when that was taken out. So with that, Again, this plan appears to be in good order with the exception of those couple of items that need to be addressed. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Mr. Pete.
I'm familiar with this area, and this development bothers me mainly because of the condition of Richardson Road and the number of vehicles that this has caused on that road. I know this is approved. I think they can make further improvements. They have a turning lane on the first entrance, but they do not have a turning lane on the second entrance on Richardson Road. Richardson Road. And the second entrance would lead back to this development and the Moore houses. So I want them to consider and look at putting a second turning lane to this entrance that would lead to this further development.
Well, a little brief history. Thompson Downs was approved originally, and when they did the traffic study, the traffic on Richardson Road did not warrant a turning lane. So, at the time, and when the next one came in, Richland Downs, it tipped the scales and said that they had to put a turn lane in because of the new development of Thompson Downs. So, at the time it was studied, it was not needed, but I agree with you. Yes, we needed.
When all these houses will be built, there will be, well, there's a need now, but when these houses are built, there'll definitely be a need for that second turn lane in that second entrance.
Right. So I mean, that connection was built, Dory Drive onto Richardson Road. It was part of that first section, and like I said, when it was constructed, it was not. There wasn't the amount of traffic, but Richland Downs soon followed right after it was approved, and they started construction, and that traffic showed that with the traffic from Thompson Downs and its own development, a turning lane would be needed, and we required that they connect the two so these people could use Richland Downs turn lane to get in and out. But I agree with you, yes, a turn lane. If I had a time machine and could go back, I wish I could, yeah.
Totally understand that, Commissioner. I don't think there's a road left in Rutherford County that doesn't have to have a turn lane. It's just the way we are now.
Let me ask a quick legal question. This thing was approved back in 2020. Timing for the final plat is within our regulations?
Yes, sir. Once the preliminary is approved, of course, they're valid for 2 years. As long as, unless no construction ever happens, then they expire, and they can get a year extension, but that wasn't necessary for this one, I don't believe. So while construction is progressing, then yes, they're fine. Once they record that first final plat, which they have done, then it's kind of locked in at that point. So as far as new final plats coming online after that, there's really no time constraints at that point.
Is it too late for us to ask for that turning lane?
I believe at this point it is, yes. Now, if they were looking to add land and make an expansion to the development, everything they're showing to this point is part of what was approved. Now, if they were going to come back and say, hey, we found some more land, we have access to this, we want to add a different section, I think at that point we might be able to, but I don't expect that to happen with this. I think this is pretty much, this is what they're going to get.
Yeah.
So we required a development right in front of this to have turning lanes, and we're telling these folks it's okay that they don't have one.
Well, kind of what Mike was talking about a moment ago, when the traffic study was done for this one, there was no warrant for it. When the other development, Richland Downs, came online, that's when the warrant was hit. So they were the ones responsible for putting that turn lane into their development, but this one, based on the traffic study, didn't require one.
That's a good answer. Thank you, Doug.
But that, Mr. Chairman, that shows the errors in the traffic study and the future in the future planning, and it shows goodwill in developers being good neighbors and developers without goodwill not being good neighbors.
Anything else?
So just a brief recap, the state of Tennessee owns a lot of the land around it, so we don't expect this land to develop. This is part of, this parcel up here is part of this development, and it will be incorporated into large lots. Let me get to that. So these parcels will, yeah, these will all be part of these lots that front Darrington Court here. So these won't be developed by or subdivided, I would say, because there's no additional soil left for the septic system. And it's awful steep up there too.
Anyone here from Thompson Downs? Got someone.
Gerald with Huddleston Steel Engineering. It's actually Chris McGuire in our office project, but I'm familiar with the area. And there's a lot of curves in Richardson Road. I know Mr. W.R. Thompson, I can ask him, but at this point, I don't think there's anything that I could agree to for adding turn lanes. But like I say, it's maybe unfortunate they didn't get it a long time ago, but at this point, I don't think there's anything else we can do.
Thank you, sir. All right, commissioners. I have a motion.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve this. I mean, it's already in final stages based on staff comments.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Have a second. Further comments? Please call the roll.
Jim Overwater? Yes. Jeff Phillips? Yes. Lee Vogel? Yes. Charlotte P? No. David Jones? Yes. Jim Thompson? Yes. Pettis Reed?
Yes.
Motion carries.
It does carry. Moving into item 4. Bottom subdivision, 24-2025, 2 lots on 4.03 acres, zoned RM, located along Spantown Road. Sam and Cheryl Bottoms are the applicants. Includes waiver to the fire hydrant distance requirement. Mr. DeMasi.
Yes, sir. Thank you. As you stated, the applicants are proposing to divide this property into 2 separate lots. They're also planning, like a third aspect of this is to transfer 1 1/4 acre from the property to an adjacent tract to the east, parcel 5601, so they would have access to the existing spring. This property is within the Nolensville College Grove utility district. When this lot was originally created back in 2015, the Planning Commission granted a waiver because the College Grove district indicated that a fire hydrant cannot be supported at this area. Since they're adding a new lot, we had them make a new request to the utility district to determine if that was still the case. They did respond that it was still the case, that a fire hydrant waiver would still be required. So they are asking for a fire hydrant waiver in addition to the plat approval. There are some site distance issues with this, considering its location on Spantown Road. Mike's going to pull up some aerials here for you to take a look at, and some street views, as you can see on the screen. We've relayed this information to the applicant and their surveyor. They've placed some notes on the plat stating that the lot, I believe it's lot 2, is going to have access through lot 1 through an existing gate to help with that. And when Mike brings the plat back up, we'll be able to see that a little bit better. But there are notes on the plat to that effect. So you're seeing that there is a 50-foot access easement along the front. Although there is frontage for both of these lots onto Spantown Road, this will allow just the 1 driveway access into that existing gate. But I'll let Mike discuss that in a little bit more detail as he's going through the street view here.
Okay. So as you can see, this is the property that they're wanting to subdivide here on Spantown Road. And then there's a very sharp curve got a barn right next to the road, mature trees. So what they're proposing to do, and I'll show you on the, not that one, on this, we're not going to allow access in this curve for this lot. They're going to have to use an access easement across the front and to this gate that Doug was mentioning right here in this straight section of Spantown Road. And I'll take it back to, so this little gate will need to be improved here. This is the adjacent property next door. So I'd say this tree probably needs to come out anyway. So they would have to come through this gate and then go back around to the second lot. So kind of see from the topography. Sorry, my maps are running a little slow today. So it is a hilly area, and that little curve that we're talking about is right in here. So we want them to come out in this flatter, straight section right here. And that's what that easement is for.
So although it's called an access easement, it's really more of a cross-access between the two. I mean, either wording is fine. We'll see that sometimes on properties that access the same driveway where they have cross-access easements between a couple lots, so that's not terribly unusual.
Commissioners, questions for staff? Mr. Vogel.
Will there be a maintenance agreement, I guess, between the two property owners with that crossing, or is it
There
on
should be something.
I didn't know if it'd be on county right of way or on their property.
It'd be on their property. The easement would be on their property.
Okay,
so yes, it would have to be between the property owners.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jones.
Doug, the water line will not support a fire hydrant?
The water line, that's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
And we did get verification from that from Nolensville College Grove, mixing up the two.
Do we have any idea about a soil site? Is this land going to be usable even after we subdivide it out?
Yeah, if you look at the plat that Mike has up there, you see about 5,900 square foot of 75 MPI and an additional 5,500 of, well, I guess a different type of, different kind of soil. They're still 75, but it appears that there's adequate soil there to do what they want to do.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Averwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff, you know how when we do road T intersections, there's a certain number of degrees within perpendicular that intersection must be to give adequate sight lines. One of my pet peeves, I guess, is a driveway that comes in at a tight angle to the road, and you can't really see over your shoulder real well to see if anybody's coming. Is there a way to get on this plat, a way to get that driveway that it comes in at more of a T? I mean, is that something that we can dictate?
Yes, sir.
For safety
yes, sir.
reasons?
Right. That's something we can look at. I see what you're saying. But, yeah, the driveway would come along, and it's, like I said, a 50-foot easement across the front. Well, let me get there. Sorry. So, yeah, the right-of-way, let's see, starts, yeah, the solid line's the edge of pavement, the dash line is the right-of-way, and then it's 50 foot outside of that for that ingress-egress easement. So, yes, they would come in and it would, that's what I'm saying, they probably need to take out that tree, widen that gate, and that's something we can talk to building codes about at the permit stage, making sure that's adequate. So, yes. But yes, I agree, you know, that 50 foot is a wide way that they can turn and get that as more of a perpendicular. So that's what definitely we'll have to look at the site triangle on that. That's why I brought up the street view. So that's what we've struggled with right here, is this.
If you look at that photo you're looking at right there, Jim, you see that tree down there, that curve? I think that's a cut in the road, isn't it? Doesn't it go down?
Yes, it goes up the hill. Yeah, the land sits well above that that tree, so it's, if they were to have a driveway, it would be a very steep driveway anyway, right there.
If you ever been on Town Road, it's very narrow. You have, everything comes real close to that road. It's a beautiful drive. You go out there in the fall. It looks like something out of New England if you ever drive that road and go out there and drive through that. And I know specifically, I know that tree right there in that curve. You better watch it right there or you'll be part of that tree if you're not careful. But I can remember that back, if you remember, they were trying to put a raceway out there several years ago. So I had to go out there quite often in that situation, but I know exactly where that curve is and where you're doing that. And what you're talking about doing there, that's about the only way you're going to get a drive out of there. So I know what you mean too, Commissioner. But it drops down into a cut right there at that tree.
You can kind of see the topography, how it's steep right there.
I see a utility pole somewhere on that property. How do you deal with those type of things?
Well, they have an easement for that too. There's a cross line that goes through here, so it's kind of along the front, and I would say it's serving several other houses down the road. So the houses this house would have to sit back behind it. There's not enough room between the easement and the overhead electric line easement.
So anything they do would have to work around that, in essence, that utility pole?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Doug, is this family oriented?
As far, I know that the transfer of the 1.25 acres it's to keep for their own purposes, to be able to access that spring. Now, as far as the purpose of the other two lots, I'm not aware. Now, the applicant surveyor is present. They may have a little more information on that, but I don't know one way or the other.
I'd just like to know, for my own personal reasons, is this all family?
Yes, sir.
My name's Joe Ayler. I'm from Spring Hill, Tennessee. I'm the surveyor for this. And Lot 1 is for the family. It's for their son. Lot 2 is for retirement. I don't think they have a problem adjusting the gate a little bit, but one of the reasons they wanted to keep that access the way it is because they haul livestock and they have a long trailer, and it's very difficult for them to turn that trailer if they come perpendicular onto Spantown Road. So I'm sure something can be worked out for both parties, but that gate's their access to get that trailer on the Spantown Road.
Let me ask you this, in terms of water supply, I used to be in the mechanical business, and several of those folks out there have water pumps to pump the pressure up. You don't have any idea what the static pressure is on the water there for a house?
I do not, no sir. I just know they told me it wouldn't support a fire hydrant.
Other questions? If not, thank you, sir. Appreciate you moving forward. Commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Jim Overwater? Yes. Jeff Phillips? Yes. Lee Bogle? Yes. Charlotte P.? Yes. David Jones? Yes. Jim Thompson? Yes. Pettis Reed?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion does carry. Moving on down to item 5, South Haven, Section 14, 24-20-26, 55 lots on 14.22 acres. Zone Plan Unit Development, or a PUD, located off Ocala Road. South Haven Development Group, LLC, are the applicants. Mr. DeMasi.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The preliminary plan for this development was approved by the Planning Commission back in September of 2015. Again, this final plat does appear to be consistent with that preliminary plan approval. This section will actually complete the connection to Owen Lane Drive and the Stewart Creek Farm subdivision to the north. This will give them a second entrance and, well, egress, I should say, sorry, into this development. So there won't just be the access points off of Ocala Road anymore. They will be able to access it straight through, well, I say straight through, but straight through the subdivision off of Burton Knob Road as well. Most of our comments have been addressed. They do need to make sure that they add a note that the minimum pad and floor elevations are due to FEMA flooding, but beyond that, we can make sure that's taken care of prior to plat recording. So with that, the plan appears to be in good order. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Mr. Chair. Now, this is on a step system?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Now, and I'm not an engineer, but these look like very small lots, and we've had the training with CUD that we needed larger lots to make sure we fit everything in. I'm just asking that question, does this meet those standards?
Well, these, you got to remember, this was approved as a planned development several years back, and that was before a lot of the issues that we are aware of now. We weren't aware of those back then. Would this development in its current state move forward with the current sized lots today? Probably not, but they were approved with this, so
so what I'm hearing is these lots are so small, there are going to be problems.
These are smaller lots, yes.
So they're going to have problems fitting in the step system, and it's
the for the
septic.
Yeah, the step tank and the other connections, correct.
Other questions?
This is a relic of a previous era. So things, yes, we have had a lot of calls about complaints. I don't have a yard big enough to my kids to play in. I don't have a yard big enough for my dog to run in. So this is part of the reason why we're changing the PUD regulations.
I just question a developer who we know their problems, we know their complaints, why they would still bring this as it is.
It's the last section of this subdivision. Yes, I know, I understand.
Problems, and there's still complaint. You learn by your mistakes, or you're supposed to.
Anyone else? Would you like to hear from the applicant? I knew you would. Okay, it's the applicant here. Yes, sir.
John Miner with SEC, 850 Middle Tennessee Boulevard, Murfreesboro. As far as the lot size, this is, how many is in the subdivision, Mike? 577?
Yes, that sounds correct.
Something like that?
Yeah.
So, as Mike said, this is the last section of it. And moving forward, we have kind of learned, working with CUD, that these lots are tight. However, we have managed to get the previous 500 and some odd lots worked out and approved. We are consistent with what we were allowed to do and continue to move forward on that. And then as far as like the lot sizes and everything, this is one of the ways that unfortunately we keep home prices down is smaller lots, and these developments are still selling out like crazy.
So even though the problems that you've had with these smaller lots and just the minimal amount of feet that would take to eliminate those problems, you still want to go as is?
Correct.
Other questions for the applicant? If not, thank you, sir. Commissioners?
Maybe I need education here, 'cause it might go back to that last one that we did approve. It's 9 years old, right?
The preliminary plan was approved about, like you said, back in 2015, so
Okay.
yes. Now, the actual zoning for it was approved prior to that even. It was approved.
14.
Yeah, well, yeah, back in.
But
yeah,
the
they changed
final
something.
plat, this is noted as final plat approval, so this has really not been approved.
Sorry, say that again?
This has not been approved like it is.
Well, the final plat hasn't, but this is based on the preliminary plan and the construction drawings, which have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chair, is there any legal basis not to approve it?
With respect to this particular matter before the board, as long as it meets the preliminary plat and the development standards that were in effect at the time of that approval, it is difficult to maneuver around not granting approval today.
And the planned development, the pattern book, because it was a PUD.
That was approved 9 years ago. And again, I think this shows how developers are not learning from their mistakes and being good neighbors.
I'm gonna move that we approve it based on what I just heard from the legal. It's been approved preliminary. Our hands are basically tied at this point in time, but I'm telling you, we have a need. We've got neighbors telling us we have a need. These same neighbors showed up against a long-term family, been in this county for generations, that are moving into this place. They don't want him to sell his land for a storage business. This just doesn't go away. It goes on and on. We have got to increase lot sizes. We've got to do what's right for the taxpayers, and I'm hearing it overwhelmingly. So I'm going to move to approve it based on the fact it's already, my legal guy here says let's go.
Motion to approve, motion to second. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Jim Overwater? Yes. Jeff Phillips? Yes. Lee Bogle? Yes. Charlotte P. David Jones? Yes. Jim Thompson? Yes. Pettis Reed?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion does carry. Moving on to Section C, submitted for site plan approval. Item 1, crossings at Walter Hill Townhomes, 233013, construction of 100 townhomes units on 11.16 acres, zone plan unit development, PUD, located along Lebanon Pike and Central Valley Road. GC Central Valley, LLC is the applicant. Mr. DeMasi.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The plan development for the crossings of Walter Hill, this development, was approved, at least the amended version, back by the Board of Commissioners back in December of 2021. The Planning Commission's already considered the preliminary plan for the single-family element to this back in July of 2022. This is the site plan for the townhome element. As you stated, Mr. Chairman, this is a total of 100 townhome units. 68 will be 3 bedrooms, while the remaining 32 are for 4-bedroom units, and this is consistent with their approved plan. We were in the process of reviewing those revisions when I originally sent out these comments. I will say that most of the comments that we had have been addressed. There are a few outstanding things that still need to be considered here. For instance, we're still working on the landscape plan. Well, the applicant's still working on the landscape plan and the photometric plan that will go along with this. Of course, landscape is usually one of the last things that they would do anyway, so we have some time to make sure that that's going to meet our regulations. Of course, they'll also have to show adequate fire protection, fire hydrant spacing, and locations and whatnot. But besides that, I think this site plan is in good order, and I'll turn it over to Mike for any comments that he may have on this.
Right. Okay. Let me get you a map to show you where we are. This is Lebanon Pike, US 231, State Route 10, Central Valley Road here, And the proposed development is in this area here. This is Jefferson Pike up to the north, Cherry Lane to the south, Siegel Soccer Park to the south. This is the property highlighted in the yellow. And as part of this development, and in working in cooperation with the property to the west, is also development called East Fork Homes, I believe. They are putting in a traffic signal at Lebanon Pike and Central Valley and adding turn lanes as part of this development. So, and I'll turn on the city limits because there's city limits all around. This large development here is Liberty Station, Liberty Valley. It's all within the city on city sewer. This development and the development to the west and also to the south are going to be on step systems. So they will not be within the city limits or tied to their sewer systems. They'll be on a step system. So we have been working with the design engineer and the development team on getting the plans in order. There's still a little tweaking needs to be going on, like Doug said, and I'll try to pull that up. So that's what they're proposing. I'll try to get you oriented correctly. So north is to the right. This is Lebanon Pike here, Central Valley here. They're going to add an entrance off of Central Valley and also Lebanon Pike. The traffic signal will be going at the existing intersection here, and this is where all the townhomes will be. This road here will be a public street, and it will connect to the two other developments, one to the west and one to the south. East Fork Homes is to the west, Irwin Landing to the south. So they're all three happening about the same time. They are, like I said, putting in the traffic signal, turn lanes on both roads here. So a lot happening in this area. This big lot will be their step system. This secondary lot will be their stormwater management area. And then you have a couple, one parcel on the corner will be commercial, and then another step lot for reserve soil area here. Kind of orient everything. Any questions for me on this, or Douglas?
Commissioner P.
Mr. Chair, it says the applicant is GC Central Valley LLC. I'm not familiar with that. Where are they from?
They have representatives here, but I believe they're out of Atlanta.
These townhomes, they're to be sold, correct?
That's my understanding. Now, again, the applicant is present and can speak more to that.
HOAs, those type of things, are there restrictions, or could there be restrictions as it related to rental units and the percentage of rental units? And if rentals are outnumber homeowners or people that live there, is there commercial implications on that versus residential implications? I just have a couple of questions that I'm really not all that sure about.
I think a lot of it would be dependent upon what's on the pattern book. Now, I believe the pattern book did say that these were for sale. Now, as far as were there any provisions in there for rental, I don't recall there being any. But again, the applicants are present and can speak more to that.
We'll bring the applicant up at this time. Good morning.
Good morning. How are y'all? Morning. Jane Myers, 400 Galleria Parkway, Suite 1130, Atlanta, Georgia. And we also have an office in Murfreesboro as well at 410 New Salem Highway. As it relates to the for sale, we are the developer, and so there is a bit of market conditions in that we can't speak to exactly what the end unit will be. But our intention is to develop the property once we get the site plan and the LDP for both Phase 1 and Phase 2.
I'm not sure I heard what you said. Explain your position on homeowners versus investors and rentals.
Pull your mic down. Where'd you get that?
Sorry, I'm not used to speaking into a microphone. So we are the developer, and so we intend to develop the property as in complete the horizontal. And then at that point in time, we will make a business decision as to what is next for the end user, whether that is selling it or finishing out the home units. And I can't speak to what that will be and what those market conditions will be at this time.
Let me just follow up really quickly with that. So your intent all along was to develop this property, sell it, leave without any concern as to what the long-term implications to Rutherford County is?
No, sir, that's not true. We have an office here, and we have a home building company, and so there is an option on the table for that building company to build out the units as well.
Let me just revisit the exterior of those buildings. Are they all masonry?
The pattern book required 70% brick or masonry. So yes, we will meet all the approved conditions from the zoning.
And the size of those units again?
The townhomes?
Yes.
The townhomes are 1,900 square feet, 3 and 4 bedrooms.
Thank you.
Now, how long has your office been in Rutherford County, and where else have you built, and what has happened to those apartments? Have they been sold or have they been rented?
Historically, they've been for sale throughout Murfreesboro. I actually believe South Haven was one of them. I can't speak to all the other communities just because it was pre-me, but it has been in the office has been in Murfreesboro for, I want to say, at least 5 years.
So you said South Haven is one of them. That's the one we just approved with the small lots that we have problems with, that has had history of problems with, but you're still going to build it out.
We are not participating in the future phase. I think that there was a builder program in place, so there were a handful of different builders that participated in it.
Other questions? I've got one. You already have some residents on that property, but they can't speak for themselves. There's a cemetery on that piece of property.
Correct, yes.
Any plans for that?
It's technically, I believe it's adjacent to our site, so it's not technically on the property, and so there is a plan to preserve it and keep it. There's a buffer that's required under the zoning, so we're aware of it, and we're sensitive to the fact that that's been in place for a while.
I'm sorry to interrupt. If I believe, and she's correct, that they are showing an open space adjacent to it. It's not actually on their property, but the open space that they were planning to incorporate would provide access to the cemetery, actually. But yeah, that cemetery is a separate property.
I think that's the Black family.
That's correct.
Cemetery?
Goes back to the yes.
Early 1800s. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm president of the Historical Society, so I know where the cemeteries are. I know where more dead people are than I do where living people are. Really, something. But we just question that before some of the people I know want to know what's happening.
Absolutely.
But appreciate the open space there.
Yes, our intention is to keep it preserved and but also accessible for people should they want to visit.
Okay.
I've been trying to promote a Boy Scout project to help clean that up.
Good deal.
Yes.
Mike, you had a picture up a minute ago, looked like garages or with these townhomes,
yes,
that type of stuff.
That was
really a nice looking shot of the front, I think. And the reason I bring that up, I happen to have a granddaughter getting married here this December, and I was out yesterday, day before we was looking at some stuff similar to this, happened to be in the city of Murfreesboro. And I got to back up just a little bit when I talk about as far as what my conversations are with the counties, county residences. This right here is on a major thoroughfare, looks like. I mean, it's not a traffic issue where we're on Spantown Road or we're out here on Versailles Road. That's where the issues are at. So when we talk about putting more on less property, to me, this kind of fits what we need to do as far as those demographics. A granddaughter in particular that might could afford this, more affordable. I get that. But what I don't get is trying to put so many that we can't put septic tanks in or put trees in and stuff that you're talking about, and we keep hearing over and over from our neighbors. To me, this one would fit. I do get the concern if we get a lot of rentals and how that works out, but I don't think that's my place here. But this looks like a pretty nice project from my perspective. And location is important. The infrastructure's there to handle this. The issues we've got in this county is we just can't keep doing what we've been doing and expect folks to continue to travel down these small, almost two-lane roads. They're not quite two-lane roads.
Let me just kind of follow up with the homeowners situation again. Those townhomes, there are a number of units in each particular building. Give me a rough estimate, 20, 30, 40, 50, how many units in each building?
Oh, I believe they range anywhere from 4 to 8 townhomes per building unit pack. Yeah.
So there's like 8 in a particular building. What, if I were to buy one of those units, what do I own?
I believe the structure of this is an HPR plat, so you would own your building envelope and not necessarily the common area space outside of it, and that the HOA would take care of everything outside of the exterior of the unit.
So if I bought it, I own the inside and the outside?
By outside, do you mean the building envelope of the unit?
Do I own the inside and the outside?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure the road, as it connects to the subdivision, to deter people from parking on the roadway itself. I see some overflow or visitor parking on the, I guess it would be along Armstrong Valley, or Central Valley Road, sorry, Central Valley. What about the, I guess it's building LMJKNOPR, that area along parallels 231? Do we feel like we can deter on-street parking? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that are going to come from those building lots.
We do, and we worked with staff, or I believe the prior developer, with the parking requirements. And so, while you have the 2-car garage, the driveways are also deep enough to park 4 cars as well, which we feel is sufficient to handle any potential overflow. In addition to the guest parking throughout the community.
Okay, that was one of the things we've run into recently, was the depth of the driveways.
These are deep enough to fit 4 cars.
Vehicles.
Yep.
Okay.
2 side by side, I should specify, but
for each townhome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And single family, both of them. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you.
If I could ask our county attorney a particular question. This is prime investment opportunities, and in my mind, that's exactly what's going to happen. What happens when investors outnumber homeowners that live in that area? What are the commercial implications there?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Chairman. I'm sorry.
At some point in time, an investor buys a piece of property, builds something on it, and rents on it. So it's a commercial rate or for a piece of property. What are the implications here if the investors rent those units out and they outnumber the number of people who live in that residence? What are the implications there?
Yeah, I don't have an answer to your question, unfortunately. And I don't know if over the next year there needs to be some something done at the legislative level at the General Assembly to give counties a little bit more ability to deal with that. I will say that the one thing that comes to mind is there are different percentages that can be taxed for your property taxes depending on whether it's residential or commercial, but that is more for a property assessor question, and he has the ability to investigate whether a parcel is in fact a commercial use or a residential use to warrant maybe an increased amount of taxes being assessed, but that'd be up to the property assessor there of when that might occur in the future. Yes, sir.
One personal observation. I know this is a plan that has been approved from a preliminary perspective, but things change. From a personal perspective, I own a retirement home in the mountains, foothills of East Tennessee. That residential area has changed, and it's some condo units, townhouses were built. Investors came in and bought those things. Investors outnumbered residents that lived there, controlled the HOA, and it has become an unacceptable situation for homeowners, simply because investors outnumbered the other ones. To me, this is prime for that to happen, and it's something that's unacceptable for me. And I just have a complete issue with us approving a residential subdivision that will no longer be a residential subdivision. I don't like it, and I won't approve it. Unless we can put some kind of restrictions on there that relate to the number of units or the percentage of units that can be rented out. Is that possible?
My knowledge, no.
Commissioners?
Move to disapprove.
Making a motion to deny? Deny. A motion to deny. Is there a second? Have a second. Further discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak, kind of address Commissioner Phillips here. And I'm not sure in my research anyway that there's necessarily a legal way to inhibit property rights as to what a person does with it. But I have found that homeowners associations can put into their deeds something along the lines of a person has to live in a home for a minimum of 2 years before they could convert that to a rental, unless of course they're military and they get transferred or a job transfer, and they have to have proof of that. So that eliminates the corporate buyouts of buying the whole neighborhood, where you get your one person essentially making up more than half the votes. Now, can those restrictions be changed at some point in the future if you get more than half the people agree on it? Of course, that would be up to our county attorney. I would say that they could, but we'd also have to study the likelihood. So I guess what I'm getting to is, can we require on future PUDs some sort of wording in the HOA restrictions that prohibits the corporate ownership of multiple properties, or what you are speaking of, even if it's a lot of the smaller investors coming in and changing the HOAs? Can they be made permanent somehow to restrict the number of rentals without state law? And this is probably something for our staff attorney to sort through. But perhaps it's an option to use restrictions for that purpose.
I'm happy to look into that and consult with staff as well. On this particular item, we know that we don't have those regulations in place. Right. And Doug, was this a PUD?
This was a plan development, yes, sir.
All right,
and it was
so pattern book has been approved in the preliminary.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, if you remember, this actually had to go through the amendment process, because what they originally proposed, they tried to submit this site plan a good year or two ago, and it was different from what was approved at the plan development stage. We made them go back through the process to amend it in its current state because the changes, in my opinion, were too great to be approved administratively. So that's why it's in the configuration it's in right now. I think we need to be cautious from a standpoint of, yes, we may have learned lessons on these plan developments as time has gone on, but this has been approved. You know, that horse has left the barn, so to speak. So to try to go back and place conditions on this that were not previously part of the plan development, I think could be problematic.
You remove your second. All right, the motion has been removed as well as the second, so we're back up now for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to
Staff
approve
comments.
with staff comments. And have a second. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Jim Overwater? Yes. Jeff Phillips?
No.
Lee Bogle? Yes. Charlotte P? No. David Jones? Yes. Jim Thompson? Yes. Pettis Reed?
Yes.
Motion carries.
It has been approved. Moving on to item 2, Redeemer Classical Academy, 243006, construction of 13,261 square feet of community education space, 3 buildings on 6.58 acres, zoned institutional, located along Veterans Parkway. Redeemer Classical Academy Incorporated are the applicants. Mr. DeMasi.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The zoning for this property was approved by the County Commission back in April of this year. As you stated, it is zoned institutional. Institutional zone was created specifically for these kind of educational uses and larger, well, institutional uses, for lack of a better word. So this site plan does match what was shown on their concept plan, although that plan was not binding. The school is going to be comprised primarily at this time of 3 buildings on just a portion of the property, which will be leased in the short term, with the school purchasing the property at some point in the future. The soul site's located across Veterans Parkway. You'll see on the map where you'll at least the map in the staff comments, you'll see the parcel's actually split by Veterans Parkway, and that was the result of extending a road through the property. So they've got the buildings on one side, their soul site on the other. Left turn lane has been included with this plan, as well as I believe they're going to have to do a right deceleration lane as well, which is shown. This road, although it is in the county, as is the property, the road is actually under control of the city limit, of the city of Murfreesboro, due to the Southwest Loop agreement. So again, it's in the county, but the city is responsible for the maintenance of that road. So the applicant will need to work with the city of Murfreesboro on any proposed improvements to Veterans Parkway. Most of our comments have been addressed, and I think Mike may want to go into a little bit more detail on some of those. But I will say that a couple of the comments, we had a discussion with the City of Murfreesboro's Traffic Department the other day regarding the improvements. They had concerns about stacking on Veterans Parkway. Of course, we don't want to see that any more than they do. There was also some concerns about the future as this school continues to grow. Would there be a need for a school zone? We've had them place some notes on the site plan, or are going to ask them to put some notes on the site plan as part of approval to state that if a school zone is ever required, that is something that they would have to pay for, the applicant would have to pay for, as opposed to the city and or the county. But with that, you can see here that there is a good amount of stacking space here shown. But Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you for any more specific comments on that.
Right, and thank you, Douglas. You covered it well, but I think this has a maximum of 60 students, I believe.
Yeah, the current enrollment's about 65 to 70 or so. They're looking anywhere, I'm trying to remember, about 100, 150 or so within the next 3 to 5 years, roughly. You can see to the right of the plan where the buildings are, there's some kind of sketched in building locations. That would be for a more permanent location. Their ultimate build out is about 300 students. Now again, that's future. That would have to come under another site plan, but they're not looking to grow much beyond 300 students from the information they've told us.
Right, and to return to the stacking, they do have the ability to do two rows of cars in here. They have adequate number of cars right now for what they're proposing with this site plan. So, you know, we talked with the city on this. They don't want any stacking any more than we do out on Veterans Parkway. So they do have the ability to do two rows of cars if need be. There is some minor adjustments that'll be made to the left turn and the right turn lanes just to meet the city and TDOT standards. This isn't a TDOT road, but we designed by TDOT standards for the stopping sight distance for turn lanes. So it is very close to flood zone, but all of the improvements will do a compensating cut on that. Any fill in the floodplain, we want to have a compensating cut so we don't lose our storage volume in the flood zone. We don't even want to look at the floodway, which is nearby. Don't even want to touch it. So we're being very careful of that. Let's see, what else? But like Doug said, they've addressed most of our comments, just with a few tweaking that needs to go on to it.
Commissioners, questions?
I can't remember, Mr. Chairman, what was is this like a K-5? Is that what this is?
It's actually a K through 12. It goes runs the whole gamut.
And this piece of property allows for some expansion?
Yes, sir. They would be able to expand like well, Mike, if you could pull up that.
Go back to that.
What they're showing right now, I would call more temporary facilities. You know, they'll get by with what they need for right now. Their plan in the future is to build a more permanent facility. Probably beyond, well, yeah, there you go. Mike's showing it on the concept plan, their future school site back in that area. Of course, they are going to have to deal with floodplain issues and things. You can see that a lot of their property is within the floodway, so they really can't touch that for anything. But they do have the room for some expansion, but again, they're not looking to grow beyond 300 students total.
So that would, in essence, be the maximum size, and this would, us approving this would also give them the indication that they could expand and build in the future?
Well, it would to an extent. Now, again, if they ever want to add facilities or build that future school site, they'll have to come back with a site plan for our approval. They couldn't just start building it, because those are just future proposed areas. That's not even a full location at this point.
But in essence, learned from some of our previous conversations this morning, what we're approving now would give them the indication that they can grow and build in the future, and we'd also be giving them that indication that they could do that.
I believe so, but of course they would still have to meet all of our conditions. If it turns out they wanted to build this, but they didn't have enough septic soil or something like that, they would have to make other arrangements. But I see your point. Yes, sir.
Just a thought that relates to our school system. Does this need to be bounced off of the Rutherford County School Board, or is this just totally?
Well, it's separate. This is a private school. It's not a charter school. So this is a private school that's currently actually in operation just up the road at the. There's a right there. Church right there.
Right at Jack
I was just trying to think of the name myself, and it was escaping me.
Yeah.
So it is a standalone.
Well, the building that they're using is standalone. I think the school allows them to use some of their facilities as part, or I'm sorry, the church lets them use some of their facilities during the week. But when they move to this new property, it'll be all contained on that same property.
I remember the conversation on this, and there is some excitement about this school going in that direction. So I'm inclined to make a motion unless anybody else wants to ask questions. Motion to approve with staff comments.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? It is approved. Item 3, Best Self-Storage, Phase 2, construction of 54,355 square feet of general personal services, mini warehouse space, multiple buildings on 7.65 acres, zone commercial services, located along Old Nashville Highway. Craig and Luana Coach are the applicants. Mr. Massey.
Yes, sir, thank you. The CS zoning for the smaller parcel 125.03 along Baker Road was approved by the County Commission back in April of last year. At that time, there was some speculation that this would just be used for an expansion to the existing mini warehouse facility that's located and accessed off of Old Nashville Highway. You may recall at the public hearing, there were some folks in the neighborhood that had some concerns regarding if this were to be a standalone business separate from the mini warehouse. There were some concerns to that. As it turns out, it is going to be used as an expansion for the existing self-storage facility as we're seeing on this site plan. Now, being that the existing self-storage was growing into this particular parcel, the county's Board of Zoning Appeals needed to be involved with a special exception. They did go through the county's BZA this month, actually, just a couple weeks ago, at their April 10th meeting, and did receive special exception approval for the expansion. Access to the property is going to be through an existing entrance exit along Old Nashville Highway. However, after reviewing the site plan, the county's fire marshal asked for a second ingress and egress point to be added onto Baker Road due to the amount of square footage that was being added. He felt it would be a better situation if they had a second way in and out of the property. So the plan that you're looking at here actually does have that secondary access point. They also show proposed buffering and stormwater detention areas. The properties will need to be combined into one lot of record via a subdivision plat. The applicant is aware of that. There are a number of items here that still are needing to be addressed. I know there were some issues from a drainage standpoint. Mike, I'm going to let you kind of delve into that a little bit more. And we would also need to verify all the access points and that the truck turning templates and everything do meet the county's regulations and then also the fire code. So with that, Mike, I'll turn it over to you for further discussion.
Thank you, Douglas. Yeah, we need to look at the truck turning templates a little bit closer and make sure there are no issues. One of the earlier versions had, you know, the trucks clipping the corners of the buildings. They have added bollards to the corners of the buildings, but we still need to make sure that fire truck, moving vans, and everything can make it through the site adequately and not have to back up and do a 20-point turn to get through here. So that's one of the things we need to verify. Stormwater, let's see, get back to that. They are putting in a stormwater management pond here to capture the increase in impervious area that they're wanting to generate with this project. So we'll have to make sure that this is sized adequately so it doesn't impact the neighbors. I can go to the plan real quick. Turn off zoning. There is this area, like many areas in Rutherford County, is a sinkhole haven, a lot of sinkholes. So we need to make sure that the volume of the water that we're sending off-site doesn't impact anybody. But they have adequate area that they can look at, and it will go into a large depression, most likely a sinkhole in this area here that builds up and spills out and goes towards Shirley Road here. So we just need to fine tune and make sure that everything's meets our standards and won't impact the neighbors. But other than that, I think they've addressed most of our issues.
Commissioners, any questions for staff?
Sounds like there's a lot of things to be worked out. Are we ready to vote on this, or do you need more time?
No, it's just a clarification of some drainage. They've got the space. It just needs to fine-tune the calculations, I believe, is what I've been told.
This phase 2 was also considered when we approved Phase 1, we kind of knew this was coming.
Well, Phase 1 was approved a long, long time ago. Right. So I can't say that we thought, or at least at the time, that they thought this was going to be coming, and they are adding that smaller portion to this. So while they would have the ability to do some expansion along their existing property, you know, this, I don't think they were contemplating this part of it because they bought this property and zoned it that way. So
yeah,
that
I
kind
think
of
this
changed.
smaller parcel came later than the original.
Mm-hmm.
I remember this one well, only because it's a storage business. And I remember the neighbor that's right next to this, she was the only one that really come and spoke against it because she didn't want this to be a Dollar General. She made a comment, if they'd put a storage there, I wouldn't even be here because there's just no traffic there. So I'm gonna make a motion to approve it based on staff comments.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Has been approved. Staff reports and other business, Mr. DeMasi.
I don't have anything currently, sir.
No other information. Just to remind you that our next Planning Commission meeting will be on May 13th, 2024, right here. So if there's no other business, we are adjourned.